Alright, in today's video we are going to be doing a full gear breakdown and tone analysis of John Mayer's cover of Everybody Wants to Rule the World by Tears for Fears. This is the performance when he joined Alexander 23 on stage to perform this song in Boston during the second last night of the Sob Rock tour. And before we get into everything, special shout out to Connor Johnson 98, who's been asking me to make this video in the comments for well over a month now. I don't even know why it took me so long to make this video. The tone of John's is one of my favorite that he's had in years, and even just his playing, it's so melodic, and the way it serves the purpose of the song, I just genuinely love it. It's one of my favorite performances of John's, I think, actually, of all time, to be honest. That's how much I love this one, and I don't know why it's taking me so long to do this video. So today, the way I'd like to structure everything is we are going to talk about the amplifier that John used first, following with the guitar, and then very lastly we'll talk about his pedal board. And with the pedal board, we are going to actually watch footage of the performance together, and I want to try and explain what pedals I believe John is using. We have some angles of his pedal board where you can actually see it from behind the stage, but we don't have any direct footage of him stepping on things, but I still believe we can break down and accurately say what John was using when and where. So we'll do a full tone analysis at the end of the video, so stick around for that if you are so inclined. So the amplifier that John used for this performance is one that we just would expect him to use at this point. It is his 1964 Fender Vibroverb with his JBL D130F speaker in it. Now, one important thing to note with John's Vibroverb and how we actually know what speaker it has is when you look at certain shots of it, you can really make out the cone of that JBL speaker. And that's something I actually didn't know until I had some first-hand experience with a 64 Vibroverb with that exact speaker in it. Then I realized, oh, you look through the grill cloth and you can make out that very distinct cone of that JBL speaker. So whenever we say that's what speaker is in it, that's how we know without actually having a shot of the back of the amplifier to really show the JBL logo and everything with that speaker. So the cone is a giveaway as far as that detail is concerned, and this amplifier is just one we would totally expect John to use because whenever he does any smaller guest performances, joins anyone on stage, so to speak, he doesn't bring out his full amp rig that he uses for a mainline tour like the Sob Rock tour. He always brings out the Fender Vibroverb. That's been quite a constant for John to be using in terms of his smaller amplifiers, but it sounds great. It's more than loud enough for what he needs, and it's just very portable and easy for him to use. So for any kind of performances like this, you can bet that it's going to be that 64 Fender Vibroverb that John would use. Of course, a Vibroverb as well as what John is using as part of his 2 amp setup for the solo tour when he does perform some electric component parts for the evening. Certain parts. I don't want to spoil too much of the tour if you haven't seen it already, but he'll use it for a few things here and there during the solo tour, even though it's mostly acoustic. Now, the guitar that John chose to use for this performance, I genuinely believe was the perfect choice in terms of both tone and vibe for this cover of a Tears for Fears song. It was his custom shop Jackson SL1 Soloist, which we believe he purchased in 2014. This guitar overall, just tonally wise, was perfect. Those Seymour Duncan pickups, it has the classic stack in the neck and the middle, and then the trembucker in the bridge. Combine those hotter output pickups with the Floyd Rose, it just really, tonally wise, was beautiful for this performance, and it definitely would not have sounded as good, in my opinion, if John had chose to use a Strat or a Silver Sky or anything like that. This was just the perfect choice, and really a large part of why this performance was just so great, in my opinion. Okay, now what I'm going to do is throw up a shot of John's pedal board that he used for this performance, and we're going to do a full breakdown of this pedal board before going into our tone analysis. You have to think of this pedal board as John's B-rig around the time of the Sob Rock tour. Again, for smaller performances, he wasn't going to bring out that massive spaceship of a pedal board that he used for the full-on tour that covers all of the songs that he could possibly want to perform. This one, think of it as the greatest hits, the basics, the fundamentals that John would need on a pedal board in order to really get the main core sounds that he might want. He used this with Bob Weir as well, and it's just kind of the one that he would go to for these smaller performances. Much like the Fender Vibroverb being the amplifier he'd always bring out as part of that B-rig, this is the pedal board that would always accompany it. Now, doing the breakdown of the pedal board, one thing here to keep in mind is while in this shot you will see an exotic XW1 in that Pelham blue color, John didn't use it for this performance at all, and I don't believe it was actually on stage for this performance, but in the shot you'll see it, so there it is. Now the pedal board starts off with a TC Electronics Polytune 3. That's just been John's go-to electric tuner of choice for quite a while now. Following that, we have a pedal that's no surprise in a version 1 Keeley Katana, John's clean boost of choice, obviously. Up next, we have an exotic Super Sweet booster, and John's been known within the past couple of years to have experimented with the exotic Super Clean as well as the Super Sweet, just some new additions and pedals that he hasn't been consistently using, but we've seen them come into play on this B-Rig pedal board as well as pedal boards with Dead & Company. Now, moving on next to the overdrive section, this is where things just get a little bit interesting and different in terms of gear that we haven't really seen John ever use before, at least at the time of this performance back in 2022. Now, the very first pedal is the Ibanez TS10, John's main go-to tube screamer of choice. You know, that's going to be a given on a pedal board. However, the next pedal is the J-Rocket Jeff Beck Archer, and this was actually the very first time on this pedal board really that we'd ever seen John using a clone of the Klon Centaur. Of course, he started using the Klon Centaur in 2008, about kind of transitioning into the battle studies eras when the Klon Centaur first kind of came into play with John. And then this, though, the very first time we've ever really seen him using a Jeff Beck Archer, and it was actually the Jeff Beck Archer as well that John used for the television performances of Last Train Home, Wild Blue. That was actually on the pedal board over the actual Klon Centaur as well. Now, the Klon Centaur John's been using lately is that blacked out version, but it is in fact a real Klon Centaur. But on the B-Rig, he chose to use a clone of it, and I'm a very big fan of the Icon version of the Archer. I think it sounds very great. I've shot that pedal out next to my actual Klon Centaur, and I really enjoyed the tones I was able to get out of that one. The Jeff Archer is one I haven't tried, but I'd be very curious to hear how it sounds. I know Dan and Nick off of that pedal show, they did a demonstration with the Jeff Archer as well, and it was really interesting to hear Nick's Klon against a Jeff Archer side by side. And I think it sounded pretty good next to it as well. Now, one thing I will say in regards to why John might have been using the Jeff Archer over an actual Klon Centaur is just in terms of the sizing. If you look at this shot of his pedal board here, I don't think that even if they squished the Polytune Katana, Super Sweet, and TS10 together, I don't think a Klon Centaur was actually going to fit on that pedal board. And even if it did, John doesn't want to have pedals that close together and risk accidentally stepping on something else when he goes to activate a different pedal. That's the last thing he wants to do. So I think in order to save space, they went with a clone that was a lot smaller than an actual Klon Centaur, and the Jeff Archer being what they ended up choosing. Now, John is an absolute gear fanatic, no matter what you believe. He obviously cares about his tone and his gear. The Jeff Archer being on his pedal board, I think, is a really strong vote of confidence as for that clone being a good John Mayer-approved clone of something that does the Centaur sort of thing. That's just why I genuinely believe that that was on there. John wasn't ditching the Klon Centaur. He's still using it on his pedal board for the solo tour, but I think just space-wise, he wasn't going to fit everything he wanted on a B-Rig with using an actual Klon Centaur on it. That's why I think he used it. Anyways, moving on, we have a way huge Octopus Mark II on the board to round out that front row. Then we move on to the back row, and we have a Boss OC3, followed by the Electro Harmonix Qtron Plus. Then we have John's blacked out Boss CE2, followed by an MXR carbon copy, and then lastly the Strymon Flint rounding out the pedal board. Now, with the pedal board out of the way, let's get into that tone analysis of Everybody Wants to Rule the World. Brilliant cover by John and Alexander 23. Legitimately one of my favorite performances of John's. I just love it. It's brilliant. Okay, so now we are at what I like to think of as the really fun part of this video, the tone analysis and kind of trying to piece together what pedals John was using to help him achieve that really awesome tone. And I'll just touch on some other things in this performance that I really liked and to why I personally think it's so damn brilliant, honestly. Now, thanks to Tyler Matt, who was the drummer for Alexander 23, we get an awesome shot of the stage where he was filming from behind the drum kit. But unfortunately for us, the view of John's pedal board could not have been more perfectly obstructed. Unfortunately, we just don't get a point-blank shot of John stepping on anything. When I first stumbled upon this footage, I was like, oh, perfect, we get an actual shot of the stage. We'll see John stepping on everything, and yeah, no, we don't. We don't at all. So we're going to piece together some footage of this, but primarily just the main footage that was uploaded by Alexander23 on his YouTube channel, looking at John's board and just really paying close attention to where he is stepping. We're going to kind of piece together everything that he used as best as we can, and I think we'll be able to really nail it down without getting that point blank footage. So let's get right on into the tone analysis. Okay, so our tone analysis begins at the very beginning of the performance. John obviously is introduced, he walks on stage, plugs in his Jackson, and then he steps on a couple of pedals here, which we're going to break down first off. So the very first thing that John does is he steps on the Polytune 3, turning it off. The tuner was just acting essentially like a mute switch. He strums a couple of muted notes on his guitar, has signal, okay, we're good to go, nothing catastrophic is going on, his whole rig is working. Then from the main footage that Alexander23 uploaded, it looked like he might have stepped on something else, which I was wondering if he was either turning the exotic super sweet on or off, deciding if he needed more volume or less. However, looking at the shot from kind of the back end of the stage, looking out towards the crowd, you can just make out John's pedal board, and he actually doesn't step on anything. He's just kind of leaning forward with his right foot before then stepping on the Boss CE2 and turning that on. That chorus is just providing that subtle modulation and really just helping to create that vibe from the 80s, and it's beautiful. It really fits Everyone Wants to Rule the World very nicely. Now, there is one thing that John does during the second verse and second chorus that I really want to touch on. It's one of my favorite parts about this performance and something that I just think is absolutely brilliant that John chooses to do that I just haven't seen talked about in regards to this performance. And it's the rhythm that John plays. Now, during the first verse and first chorus, John's just kind of following the groove and he plays the chords. But then when it comes around to that second verse, he starts playing this really awesome rhythm that he just rides along, and then once it comes to that second chorus, he switches the rhythm up, and it just really drives the song and helps build it all up for that bridge. And I just think it's absolutely brilliant. Every time I listen to this performance, I absolutely just love the rhythm that you hear going on from John. It's very much serving the purpose of the song. It's nothing flashy. He's not playing anything crazy, not playing any kind of lead lines underneath the vocals. He's just riding this really incredible groove that I love. It's arguably my favorite part, actually, not even the solo. That groove is arguably my favorite part of the entire performance. Now, Tears for Fears did a really great performance. It was a studio live performance of the song back in February of 2022, and Roland Orzabal, he plays a very similar kind of thing during the verse. Then when it comes to the chorus, though, it's not really the same thing, so I think John just took some inspiration from maybe watching some of their performances and then kind of put his own spin on it. It's my own design. But however it goes, I just loved what John did during these two parts, and like I said, not a lot of people have really talked about it as far as I'm aware, and it's one of my favorite parts that I just wanted to share with you guys. It's my own desire, yeah. It's my own remorse. Help me to decide. Help me make the most of freedom and of pleasure. Nothing ever lasts forever. Everybody wants to. And speaking of that bridge section, when it comes to this part, obviously things really start to ramp up and we get a lot more volume and a lot more drive from John's guitar tone. Now, in watching where he steps and where the pedals are, I am just dead confident that what we're seeing John step on is the Ibanez TS10. It's kind of like his bass overdrive that he really uses as well. He doesn't rely on the Klon as much for kind of the main overdrive tones. He just uses it to stack with the Tube Screamer, and you can see John step kind of right underneath where the Boss CE2 is, and on the pedal board here, that's right where the switch of the Ibanez TS10 sits. So that's just, I'm super confident that that's what John was stepping on just based off of this kind of evidence here. And then the bridge ends and John keeps the Ibanez TS10 actually on, and he plays kind of the main lead kind of part of the song, kind of underneath everything. And then when the first guitarist does his solo, then that's when he turns off the TS10 and goes back to just his kind of main tone for the song. Everybody wants to rule the world. There's a room where the light won't find you. Holding hands while the walls come tumbling down. When they do, I'll be right behind you. So glad we've almost made it. So sad they had to fade it. Everybody wants to rule the world. Oh man, now it's at this point here we can talk about just this really great solo that John does. The playing is incredible. John, especially during the Sob Rock tour, was really experimenting with using the Floyd Rose a lot more, channeling his inner Jeff Beck, his inner Eddie Van Halen a little bit, and the fluttering he does with it. It's just unlike something you'd expect from John. When you think of your typical John Mayer solo, it's not this. But this is brilliant, and I'd love an album where John experimented with the Floyd Rose, a Jackson or a Chevelle San Dimas more, and actually played these kind of solos. I think it'd be absolutely great. But for the solo, John steps on two different pedals, and again, based on where he is stepping, he steps further to the left of the pedal board if you're John looking down at it, which would be the Jeff Beck Archer, then the Ibanez TS10 for the overdrive combination for a solo tone. TS10 into Klon Centaur if you want to think of the typical John Mayer kind of tone solo overdrive pedal stacking combination. That's what we're getting here from John. Then of course, solo ends and then John turns everything off. Then as the final chorus ends, John steps on the Ibanez TS10 again, just for that main core overdriven tone, just to kind of play them out as they finish the song. He only steps on one pedal, and again, it's right underneath where the Boss CE2 is, meaning that that just has to be the Ibanez TS10. And that's the performance. It's genuinely one of my favorite Mayer performances. It's 100% my favorite Mayer performance where he hasn't sung and he's just been a guitar player. Hands down. Just so great. Alexander's vocals as well, I thought were absolutely brilliant. The whole band sounded great. They probably didn't have that much time to rehearse performing this song all together, and it came together brilliantly. And what I love, of course, too, is Tears for Fears even commented on the video, "Yes, honored to have you both perform this incredible job." And yeah, they nailed that. You know, they're 100% dead on. It was amazing. So genuinely one of my favorite Mayer performances ever. The tone of the solo, brilliant. John's playing, and just just choice of playing to serve the purpose of the song and really help drive everything and build up to the bridge. Absolutely brilliant. I loved it. Yeah, that's really all I gotta say about this performance. It's incredible. Connor, I hope you finally were happy that I made this video and you guys enjoyed it. You enjoyed it and everyone else also enjoyed it, obviously. Thank you guys so much for watching today's video. If there are any other videos you'd like me to make like this, please let me know in the comments down below as always, and I'll do my best to try and make that happen. Alexander, John, brilliant job on this performance. It was absolutely incredible. Thank you guys so much for watching. Take care, and we'll see you on the next one.
Anyway, go ahead and click the subscribe button if you like what you see.